Joe Mama Logan was a retired crazy ninja who disguised himself as Logan Paul and disappeared into the village life of Japan with his family, like PewDiePie, and only lives on lunchly meals. However, shit got real when his ex-ninja boss obliterated his family and brought back his villain arc, causing him to pair up with the FBI and going after a blonde Elon Musk. The story begins in a train where a passenger tries to mumble rap while listening to Future's new track, but he suddenly sees a man at the train window who looks like he just saw a ghost. He sweats and shivers, after which he drops from the train at the very next stop. He starts to run anxiously, but gets stopped by a group of ninja turtles who don't look very pleased. Seeming like he knew about the attack, the nerd reveals his own impressive combat skills as he starts to fight with the attackers. He is able to defeat a few, but soon after that he faces the leader of the ninjas. He unfortunately proves to be too much for the nerd, and the leader ends up unaliving him. The scene shifts to a farm where a Logan Paul lookalike, who is ironically named Joe Logan, is testing some corn. He then goes to his house and starts fixing his bike. He then gets startled when his own little kid comes out of nowhere, wearing a demon mask. After the kid's jump scare attempt fails, we see the guy's wife, and his life is looking very wholesome at this point. The cute family then sits in their TV lounge when suddenly the news of the train incident appears on the news. Realizing the news is too much for the child, the blonde guy takes his kid for bedtime. As he returns to his wife in the lounge, they both seem to have some idea on who could have done this. The wife is particularly shocked with the details of the scene, and she looks worried about their own family. But Joe assures her that they're safe, and that the Ninja Turtles are not a threat to them. A few days pass as the family continues to live its peaceful village life, giving full-on PewDiePie vibes. However, at the same time, news of more murders starting coming, indicating the horrors that are about to come ahead. One particular day, Joe is having a low-key birthday party for his son outside his house. He sets up a barbecue, a birthday cake, and my man even tries to imitate Ed Sheeran with a guitar in his hands. The family then does an adorable group hug as the day comes to an end, after which they go to bed. Joe, however, goes to check his house before sleeping as he senses something weird. His intuition turns out to be right as in a shocking turn of events, the assassin ninjas literally blast their way inside his home. Joe immediately goes into fight mode as he starts to fight off the ninjas, and my man has some serious skills. But the poor guy is heavily outnumbered, and he loses to the assassin crew. They end up getting his family as the room floor goes full of red sauce. He helplessly watches, after which he's taken care of as well. After that, we see Joe open his eyes in a hospital bed with an oxygen mask on. He is told by the doctors that he miraculously came back to life after being pronounced dead at the crime scene. Glad to know that the Dragon Balls are still in use. However, Joe is told that his wife Mary and son Ren did not make it, which completely shatters him. Then suddenly, two FBI agents Mike and Emma arrive at Joe's hospital room. They wish to speak to him, but the doctor tells them to be careful as he might turn feisty. Mike asks Joe if he remembers anything about the ninjas who entered his house. Hearing the question, Joe starts breathing heavily, so Mike simply leaves his card at his bed and leaves with Emma. In the hospital corridor, Mike tells Emma about his gut feeling that Joe knows the attackers very well, and that they must stalk him secretly till he's admitted in the hospital. In the night, Emma keeps her eye on Joe, who is brought to the hospital terrace on a wheelchair for some fresh air. Suddenly, the whole scene flips upside down as the ninja crew appears again and launches a full-on attack at Joe. However, they have no clue about the rage boiling inside Joe, who's literally craving revenge. Bro literally says F the wheelchair and starts to eliminate the ninjas one by one. Puzzled by Joe's inhuman skills, Emma rushes to call Mike to inform him about the unusual development. But Mike surprisingly arrives at the scene, unaware of the ongoing fight. He runs in on Joe, who is literally butchering the ninjas left, right, and center. Joe is then challenged by the leader of the attackers, the same guy who unalived his wife. Engulfed in fury, Joe wastes no time and annihilates the lowlife in brutal fashion. Right at this moment, Joe brings a huge plot twist as he takes off his blonde face mask and reveals his real brunette face. In the next scene, Joe returns to his house where he revisits his family's belongings. Looking at them, he dearly misses his wife and child, as all their memories start to play inside his head like a movie. After his mourning, Joe announces his full-fledged maniac villain arc as he literally sets his old house on fire, burning all his memories at once. He then turns around, putting on a demon mouth mask and officially initiating his revenge against the ninjas. The fire burns away every last memory, but Joe remains full of anger. Later, he relives the terrifying moment when his family was eliminated. This time, his wife calls him by his real name, Higun. His family no longer appears in disguise, and his son cries out to him. Suddenly, Joe wakes up from the nightmare, finding the assassin leader tied up. Joe is in rough shape, though, and collapses. He's surprised to hear someone has arrived, and the man who walks in is just as shocked. He thought the next time they'd meet would be in the afterlife. This man turns out to be a fake doctor, and he asks why Joe isn't wearing his disguise. Joe has no idea how he managed to survive, and the doctor wonders if someone is keeping him alive. It will take 6 full days for Joe to fully recover, but his only concern is getting well enough to question his prisoner. The doctor asks what Joe will do next, and Joe's answer is clear. He will hunt down everyone responsible for his family. The doctor gives Joe something to help him heal, but the pain is unbearable and Joe faints. After he regains some strength, Joe seeks out the leader of the assassins. One day, Joe pours gasoline sauce all over him. The assassin starts acting insane, saying Joe should have seen his wife's expression. He didn't think much of Joe's son, who was just as frightened as everyone else. But Joe's wife was different. Her eyes were filled with rage and hatred right to the end. This head goes even further, telling Joe that his wife cried more with every attack. Joe, staying calm, tells him to pay attention, saying that he will burn the memory of his family into his mind forever. He then describes the unbearable pain he's going to inflict on him, sounding like an even bigger psycho. Joe adds that death won't be an escape, as this is the revenge for the fallen Saiyans. Joe then sets the man on smoke and watches like a sick maniac. Meanwhile, Mike is removed from the investigation into Logan Paul. The order comes from the superiors, who are angry about what went down at the hospital. There were no cameras on the roof, and they have no idea whose blood was found. Mike mentions that Emma saw everything, but his boss suggests he talk to her again, as it seems her story has changed. Mike is frustrated with Emma for giving in so easily, but she laughs at how obvious it is that the higher-ups are trying to cover this up, playing dirty politics. Something shady is definitely happening, and she knows the smartest move is to just play along. Secretly, though, she's been digging into Joe and his family, discovering that they all use fake names and don't actually exist. That night, a couple of crooked cops walk into a bar and get angry when the bartender doesn't hand over enough cash. Joe is sitting nearby, and one of the cops decides to hassle him, asking if the motorcycle outside is stolen. Joe ignores him, so the cop demands his license. Joe stays silent, so the cop tries to grab him, but Joe knocks him out fast like a savage. Calmly, Joe gets up to leave, but the other cop tries to attack him from behind. Joe's punch doesn't even land on the guy, but the force from his swing sends the cop flying outside. Joe glances at the cop car and remembers the business card Mike gave him. The next day, Mike thinks Emma is just joking around, but she reminds him she's investigating a crime. Many criminal deals are happening in virtual reality now, and she needs to finish this case so they can look into Joe. Emma adds that VR has advanced rapidly, thanks to the Awoke company. Suddenly, Mike is surprised by a call from Joe. He carefully pulls Emma out of dirty VR videos and signals her to check the call. Mike tries to get Joe to reveal who he really is, but Joe has his own questions. Joe says he wants to talk, and when Mike points out that they are already talking, Joe calls back to give Mike another chance, but warns him to stop playing games. Joe lets Mike choose the meeting spot, and Mike picks a restaurant. The call ends, and Emma feels let down because she couldn't track down Joe. At the restaurant, Mike tells the owner to take a break. The owner reluctantly agrees to leave, but asks Mike to send any delivery drivers to the table by the door where the food orders will be. Joe eventually shows up, but Mike wants to see his face to be sure he's not pulling a Rey Mysterio on him. Joe thinks about leaving, but Mike agrees to talk. Joe, curious about who's behind the recent string of murders, offers to answer Mike's questions in exchange. Mike feels relieved, but suddenly pulls out his gun, revealing he doesn't negotiate with suspects. He orders Joe to get on his knees. Just then, a delivery guy arrives and grabs one of the orders. Mike wonders why Joe didn't take the chance to flee, but Joe still wants to talk. Another delivery driver comes in to pick up an order, and Mike, now even more cautious, warns Joe not to try anything. As Mike circles the table, he declares that Joe is under arrest. Joe stays still, but Mike starts getting irritated when a third delivery guy walks into the restaurant. Mike feels confused when he sees there aren't any more orders to be picked up, and this delivery guy suddenly attacks. Joe reacts quickly to block the strike, but his face gets exposed, and Mike starts wondering who he really is. Joe finds himself caught in a fight, but it's obvious that this attacker is a fake delivery guy. Mike tries to arrest them both, but things escalate when the delivery guy lunges at him, forcing Mike to open fire. Joe steps in to save him from getting killed, and the fight grows more intense when the attacker reveals another set of arms. Joe gets pushed back, but counters with his shadow jutsu, bringing out 4 extra arms and 2 heads. The fierce battle continues, but Joe now has the advantage with more arms, and he grabs hold of the attacker. Joe shoves him away and gets ready to finish the fight, only to realize that the guy's extra arms were actually a second person hiding in his bag. This new guy launches a surprise attack from behind, and Joe struggles to fend off both dangerous opponents. Joe steps in again to save Mike, tossing alcohol at the assassins. He ignites his swords, and the intense battle continues. As the fight escalates, Joe drinks some of the tequila and uses it to create a fireball, launching it at his enemies. With the wild fight finally over, a shocked Mike begs Joe to explain who he is. Joe simply says Peking duck, leaving Mike frustrated, as that's just an item on the restaurant's menu. My man is cheekier than Logan Paul. Mike then demands to know what happened to the guy from the hospital, so Joe activates a device to reveal his disguise. At last, Joe admits he's a ninja. Psych. The fake delivery men were ninjas too, as were the men at the hospital. Suddenly, they have to dive for cover as a group begins shooting at them from outside. Things go from bad to worse when they spot one of the attackers aiming a rocket at them. The entire building blows up, and the attackers flee. Joe seems to disappear, but we see him watching Mike from above. Mike checks his chest, and realizes Joe's blade had sliced through his body armor, yet the blade remains flawless, even after the fierce battle. Meanwhile, a man named Zai reports to his master that, regrettably, their target is still alive. The scene shifts to a politician who runs for his life after his house is attacked. He pleads with God to stop the demons, but fear grips him when he starts hearing strange noises. Suddenly, terrifying hands appear out of nowhere and take their lives. The man behind this attack watches from nearby, and seems oddly interested in Joe, whose picture he has on his phone. Later, Master Yamaji visits this creepy phone guy. He complains that his latest job was dull, and insists that his skills should be used for more thrilling missions. Yamaji reminds him that he is just a weapon, and weapons don't have a will of their own. Yamaji then explains that exiles like Higan are no longer considered ninjas. Once they leave, they become enemies, and must be taken out immediately to protect their secret arts. This guy is a cold freak. Higan is one of Japan's most elite ninjas, mastering countless fighting styles, and showing no mercy when dealing with his targets. Though they've unalived him before, they suspect he survived using his secret technique. Elsewhere, a man dressed in red is tasked with reminding Zai that he has lost everything he once knew about fighting with honor. Now, Zai's actions are nothing but violence, and the man wonders how many of Zai's former allies have fallen by his hand. Zai is now targeting those exiled from the corrupt group, but the man in red points out their failure to defeat Higan. Higan proved that those who still believe in the old ways won't be brought down by someone like Zai. The man in red is confident that once the other exiles hear about this, they will rise up against the organization, just as he has. This man once trained Zai in swordsmanship, but now he must stop what he once helped create, just like Prince Vegeta. With a devastating strike, he tells Zai that defending against a blade of wind is impossible. This is his secret technique, the flying swallow. Zai survives, but the man is convinced it won't be for long. As he prepares to attack again, he notices Zai's sword is gone. Looking down, he finds that Zai has somehow managed to slice him, and the man is defeated. At the police station, Mike is informed that the attack at the restaurant was just the mafia. He is furious at how much more dumb the cover-ups could get. Then, his boss calls him, reminding Mike that he's close to retirement, and advising him not to ruin it by getting involved in things that aren't his business. Meanwhile, Joe is at a hideout and starts a fire. Mike arrives to meet him as planned, but he mentions that the restaurant owner was set up. Though they plan to deal with that later, for now, they settle in to enjoy some Peking duck. Inside, they review what they know. The blades used in the attack were made from a special alloy, and the patent for it is held by Ozza. There's a clear link between Ozza and the ninja, but Mike needs to investigate further. Ozza is a dangerous company, especially since they have the FBI on their side. Joe doesn't care about how dangerous they are. They unalived his family, and he vows to hunt every last one of them down and make them pay. Mike warns him that if he goes through with it, he'll have to arrest him, but Mike decides there are plenty of other crooks that need handcuffing first. Mike knows someone who has some insight on Ozza, so they head over to meet Emma. Mike jokes about her old, beat-up car, but she quickly shoots back, saying his car is even worse. Ninja comeback. Joe, being a former Need for Speed geek, knows everything about her Beetle, but he's caught off guard when she reveals she knows he's a ninja. Emma's research shows that Ozza is a global company involved in developing military weapons. But that's just part of the story. Ozza also has a hand in entertainment, clean energy, and nearly every type of technology out there. It feels like they're taking over, with their products constantly replacing all kinds of software and hardware every day. Every country relies on their tech in some way, but their rapid rise has sparked dark rumors. Several people who are a problem for the company, like leaders of competing businesses and journalists investigating them, have mysteriously died. These deaths seem too convenient for Ozza, leading her to suspect the company is behind it all. The scene shifts to a scientist presenting a powerful reactor to the Ozza boss, Joseph. The reactor is performing even better than before, now generating 2.2 million kilowatts of power per second. The boss is thrilled and says this technology will change the world. The blonde Elon Musk declares that Ozza must become the leading company, with their innovations improving everyone's lives and setting a new global standard. Later, Joseph meets with Yamaji, who shows him a picture from a restaurant attack. The boss admits that his men were involved, explaining that it was a test for a new weapon, and he chose a ninja as the target because of their extraordinary abilities. Worried about Yamaji's anger, he quickly clarifies that the target was a former ninja, not one from Yamaji's organization. He tries to remind Yamaji that they are partners, but Yamaji sternly warns him never F with his boys again. Meanwhile, Emma introduces the group to the heart of Ozza. Ozza City is a test city completely controlled by the organization. Suddenly, Joe saves Mike from a blade aimed at his head as they come under attack. Emma tries to get everyone out of the car, but a sword tries to pierce through the windshield. Mike shoots at the attacker on the roof while Joe uses his skills to sense where the threat is coming from. He stabs his own sword through the roof, but it hits them instead. When Joe realizes that Mike and Emma are unconscious, he spots the attacker outside. This skilled ninja starts throwing a barrage of blades at Joe, forcing him to go outside and fight. During the battle, the attacker pushes Joe back and reveals multiple mechanical arms, each with cameras that target Joe as the enemy. Joe quickly finds himself in trouble, getting hurt as the enemy grabs hold of him. However, Joe turns the situation to his advantage, slicing through some of the attacker's missiles. But the enemy has even more weapons hidden in his face. Joe, moving with incredible speed, dodges the missiles in midair and completely defeats the attacker. Knowing that someone else is watching, Joe signals to them that they are next. Soon after, an ambulance arrives to help Mike and Emma, and Joe gets a phone call. He hesitates to answer, but when he does, the voice on the other end says they're glad they can finally speak. The voice calls Joe by his real name, leaving him with shit in his pants, especially since the person won't reveal their identity, but somehow knows Joe's plans to head to Ozza City. Naturally, Joe doesn't trust them, but he's caught off guard when they recite an old ninja poem. The stranger claims to be an exiled ninja as well, and says if Joe is serious about completing his mission, he should meet him at a specific spot. Meanwhile, at a hospital, Mike looks at a drawing his daughter made. Flashbacks reveal a day when Mike answered his wife's call at work, only to hear devastating news. Their daughter had died in a car accident, and his wife was shattered. Feeling abandoned by Mike due to his demanding job as an FBI agent, she decided she could no longer stay married to him, and escaped. Now, Mike can only gaze at the drawing of his once happy family, but Joe interrupts his me moment. Joe shares the details about the person offering to help, but Mike doubts it. Joe has his own doubts, yet the stranger knew the nursery rhyme that had only been taught within the old group. Emma confirms the guy was right about Ozza City's intense security system. Her research shows that getting past it would be nearly impossible, like being invisible or some could only work. She has also discovered a group on the dark web tracking the Ozza Corporation, believing the company is developing weapons of mass destruction as part of a plan to take over the world. The site's admin is reportedly a former Awoke researcher, so Emma suggests they go and question this person. As Joe starts to leave, Mike asks if Joe's wife knew his true identity. Joe reveals that she did, since she was also a ninja. Psych. However, to be together, they had to break a strict ninja code that requires emotional detachment, even from allies. Meanwhile, Executive Joseph is impressed to learn Joe survived the last attack. A creepy piece of shit assassin ninja named Lil wonders if Joseph plans to join the fight. But Joseph is more interested in gathering data. Lil does some perverted trash talk, prompting Joseph's bodyguard, Diley, to offer to silence him. Joseph redirects the conversation, mentioning that Joe is heading to the city, but he's quickly reminded about the unbeatable security system. Joseph turns to Big D for his thoughts, but Big D is too focused on himself, obsessing over his sick haircut, and threatening to take down anyone who messes with it. Lil blabs some R-rated shit, but this time Yamaji has had enough, as he uses his power to shut him up. Joseph then reminds Yamaji that he joined their group only to advance his research. At this moment, Joseph only cares about collecting data for his prototype, and hopes Joe doesn't die too fast. Meanwhile, Sai eagerly awaits permission from Yamaji to eliminate Higan. However, the master declines, saying he'll just send others after Higan instead. A flashback reveals a trio of ninjas on a mission. As they carry out their task, they recite their code, never reveal ninja secrets, stay emotionally detached, and always put the mission above their own lives. The ninjas gather the information they need, successfully completing their mission. Afterwards, a ceremony takes place to honor the 3 skilled shinobi. It's a tradition, and each of them is given a name: Sai, Higan, and Mary. But that's not all. Their shock grows when they're told that a secret art will be entrusted to each of them, which they must vow to keep hidden forever. They all agree. The leader is confident that these 3 will guide their village into the future, and it's revealed that Yamaji was also present. Later that night, Joe mentions how having names will help them remember each other. They decide to celebrate with a drink, but Joe jokingly warns Sai not to accidentally reveal his secret art. Sai assures him that would never happen, and says it could be a surprise if they ever face off. Although Zai comes across as a cold freak, he declares that the bond between the homies is stronger than blood. The trio then makes a pact to risk their lives together for whatever lies ahead. After this, they set off on another mission. Everything goes smoothly at first, but Mary hesitates when she spots a child, and this moment of pause leads to her getting shot. Mary is severely injured, and she urges Joe to leave her behind. But Joe, determined to protect her, leaps out of the window with her. He revives her and carries her to a nearby cave. Despite Mary's pleas for him to save himself, Joe refuses again. Desperate, Mary tries to end her life, but Joe stops her just in time. She makes one final attempt, reminding him of their code that requires them to let go of even their closest allies. But Joe's determination only grows stronger as he declares that he broke the code the moment he met her. Full-on Romeo-Juliet vibes. Mary also gives in, and they both lock lips. Not long after, Sai finds them, both in terrible condition. Fast forward to the present, things have clearly changed, and Sai no longer looks the same. Meanwhile, Mike gets a call from his boss, who tells him he can do whatever the F he wants since he's off the case. But Emma's situation is different. Elsewhere, Joe waits to meet with the mysterious call person, but the man calls instead of showing up in person. Irony. He explains that Awoke City has its own advanced technology everywhere, including sensors all around the perimeter. These sensors check whether people are allowed to enter the city, and if not, they receive a warning. If they ignore the warning, the system will take them out. On top of that, the city's airspace is protected by a barrier, which only lets air pass through. Entering from above is impossible, so Joe will have to go underground. There's a facility that controls the sensors, and the man gives Joe all the details he needs. The place is packed with security cameras, laser traps, and patrolled by mercenaries. It's going to be tough, but Joe must avoid any fights for the plan to work. If Joe gets past all the obstacles, he will reach the city's barrier. The man will cut the power, but only for 5 seconds. Any longer, and alarms will go off. He reminds Joe that he only gets one shot, one opportunity, snap back to reality. Cut to Awoke City. The mystery person has disabled all the security cameras, giving Joe an 8-minute window to infiltrate. Joe heads underground, following precise instructions on when to move to avoid the mercenaries. He expertly follows the guidance, using his incredible athletic skills to stay hidden. The man even tells Joe the timing of the laser changes, pushing Joe's physical limits. Just as Joe is about to clear the lasers, a small drop of sweat hits one of them, triggering the alarm. With no way to retreat, Joe is forced to take out several mercenaries and continue the mission. Joe reaches the barrier, and the man shuts it off. Just then, Joe is surprised as he's suddenly pushed back, with Zai now standing before him. Joe tells Zai that Mary is dead, and demands to know if the order to come after them came from Yamaji. Zai doesn't give him an answer, only saying that those who try to escape death still live in its shadow. Deep philosophical shit. Meanwhile, Yamaji is told about the break-in. Suka, who is still looking into why the barrier went down, suspects Joe had inside help. Lil, showing his twisted side, suggests they let Joe enter the city. He believes their full force will crush Joe's secret art with ease. Suka worries the chaos will reflect poorly on Azza, but the blonde Elon Musk actually likes the idea. They decide to lead Joe deeper into the city, with Joseph eager to gather some data. Joe's contact inside the city informs him that they've chosen to let him in, but it's clearly a trap. Elite ninjas are being sent to take him down, and the insider is certain Joe won't survive if he tries to fight them. He advises Joe not to go, but Joe has already made up his mind. The guy tells him to leave at 7 because the city will host a parade to distract from a fight that's about to happen. Back at the arcade, Mike is trying to get some answers, but Jason is more worried about how he was tracked down. Mike ignores him and discovers a secret path leading into the city. As the parade starts, we see Joe in the surveillance room. He moves into a tunnel while Joseph and the others watch him. Once Joe enters, he's immediately confronted by a group of deadly ninjas. Meanwhile, Jason takes Mike to a hidden room and reveals his plan to take down the entire company. Mike starts to wonder if Jason has some kind of personality issue, but Jason insists that people were just jealous of him. He's gathering all their secrets to expose them, though no one believes him. Mike admits he trusts Jason and wants to bring the company down just as much. Jason can hack into their system, but he's been holding back, afraid of what might happen if they discover him. In the city, Joe is fully in assassin mode, taking down several ninjas while the fireworks help cover up the fight. Meanwhile, Zai waits calmly. Back with Mike, Jason hacks into the Azza system, but he hasn't found anything strange yet. After some digging, they discover a list of social security numbers with prices attached. The file, named Bound, appears to belong to a corporate spy group. It seems Azza is buying fake identities to place undercover agents, proving their corruption, though there's still no link to the ninjas. Azza would have done great in politics. Suddenly, Mike is shocked to see Emma's name on the list, leaving him puzzled. Alarms blare as Jason gets booted from the system, and they notice they have company outside. Taking cover, the arcade gets infiltrated, but Mike cleverly distracts the intruders, allowing them to escape. Mike suspects the FBI must have tipped someone off. Back in the city, Joe continues his attack, entering a building and taking down more opponents. Mike tries to reach Emma, but oddly, she doesn't respond. The situation gets intense as the mercenaries chase them, and Mike's old car barely moves fast enough. Mike tries to shoot back at them, even though he's outgunned, but it doesn't help much. Jason, who's a bit crazy, comes up with a plan and manages to make a bus crash into one of their pursuers. Mike then has Jason slam on the brakes, and shows off his sharp aim by taking out 2 of the mercenaries. The car suddenly brakes, so Jason takes cover while Mike shoots at the last mercenary. Meanwhile, Joe moves through the building, and some of the final guards are terrified of him. On the top floor, Joe faces Lil and the other assassins, who are impressed he made it this far. Joseph watches from a distance, eager to see how things unfold. Joe notices a helicopter, and grows furious when he realizes Yamaji is watching him. Overcome with rage, Joe screams and charges toward the helicopter, but one of the assassins stops him. Joe finds that his attacks are useless against them, and he ends up getting thrown around. Joe uses his jutsu, but Lil Pump doesn't care about the old, outdated ninja moves. However, Joe catches him off guard with some smoke bombs, revealing his true target Yamaji. With a crazed yell, Joe charges at the helicopter, screaming Yamaji's name, but his grapple is cut, sending him crashing down. The fall shatters his mask, leaving him hurt. As the assassins close in, Joe remembers the doctor's warning never to use his secret art again. as it would be the end of him. The assassins toy with him, tossing him around, while Lil mocks him mid-air. Despite the odds, Joe's incredible speed lets him dodge several attacks, including a fireball, as he starts chanting a frightening spell. Before he can finish, though, the pink assassin lands a heavy blow. Lil steps in, claiming Joe for himself, and unleashes a barrage of punches. The beating continues, with Joe crying out in pain, while Lil grows tired of the fight. Suddenly, Lil halts the assault as someone new appears. The rain starts to fall, and Zai arrives, asking Joe if he finally understands. Zai warns him that the path Joe is on only leads to hell, and there's no way out. He attacks Zai without thinking, only to be thrown to the ground. Joe keeps repeating Yamaji's name, while Zai gets ready to end his life. Zai announces that it all ends now, and Joe, silent, accepts his fate. As Zai swings his blade, everyone watches in shock. To Zai's surprise, his attack is stopped by the pink assassin. The assassin disables the others with devices, and escapes off the building with Joe. A bomb goes off, and the huge explosion stops Zai from chasing them. Yamaji watches the failed attack, and Joe opens his eyes, realizing he's still alive. Meanwhile, Mike is in rough condition, and Jason has to carry him through the desert. Back with Joe, he's still falling from the building. His hand reaches toward the sky as if reaching for something, but he soon passes out. The assassins look down from the building and see that he has disappeared. Meanwhile, Joe wakes up and discovers that his rescuer is Emma. However, Emma is just one of her many personas, and even her appearance isn't real. After Joe came back to life in the hospital, Yamaji ordered her to investigate the mystery behind his resurrection. They believed Joe could bring himself back to life repeatedly, so they wanted to figure out how. To do this, she pretended to be Emma, an FBI agent, but that was just part of her role as a ninja working for the organization. She even has another identity. Joe is shocked when she suddenly changes her voice to sound like the mysterious man who had been helping him break into the city. Her reason for assisting Joe was to help him seek revenge. It's hard to believe because, while she was watching Joe as Emma under the organization's orders, she was secretly betraying them by helping him. She admits that she has her own plans, and needs Joe to stay alive to accomplish them. Meanwhile, Yamaji learns about a suit that Emma stole. It was still a prototype, and she had been planning this betrayal for a long time. These suits are called Guoko gear. The combat suits are top of the line, designed to work seamlessly with any ninja technique. Emma, who is part of the team that developed them, reveals that the one she stole is the most advanced. She just needs to finish it, and it will feel like a new body for Joe. Meanwhile, Mike wakes up, and Jason scolds him for needing protection. Mike is shocked to learn he's been unconscious for 10 days, but Jason reassures him they are safe. He brought them to a secluded house owned by a wealthy person, where no one ever comes by. Mike tries to stay positive, noting that being attacked means they were close to uncovering some secrets. Back with Joe, Emma tests the suit, but it fails. They need a power reactor, which acts as the heart of the suit, but parts like that are only at headquarters. Going there would be foolish as hell, leaving Emma with only one choice she dreads. Joe is still haunted by the memories of a tragic day, and we flash back to when he was with Mary. She patched him up and shared her ninja philosophy. She believes that controlling emotions at their most intense makes a person unstoppable. Joe remembers this and uses it to calm down, but the organization is closing in on their location. There's only one spot left to check, so Big D volunteers, feeling confident about it. Meanwhile, at the hideout, Emma finishes working on the reactor and armor plating, with just a little left to do. Later, she reveals that the suit is complete and will be named Kamui. Now the show title is coming full circle. The suit responds instantly to the user's thoughts, making its reaction time unlike anything ever seen. The stronger the user imagines their actions, the faster and more powerful the suit performs them. However, syncing the user's mind to the suit is tough. Joe will be put into a deep sleep, unable to wake up even if he's stabbed in the heart. Emma reassures him that the next time he dies will be the last, and reveals another secret that she was there the night his family was attacked, and she used her secret technique to save him. She was the one who stuck the needles into his neck, freezing all his cells through a special pathway. But once those pathways close, they can never be used again. Joe, now furious, demands to know why she saved him instead of his family. He's getting too aggressive, so Emma calms him down with a device. At that moment, alarms go off as the organization gets closer. Big D starts breaking in, and Emma begins to panic, but Big D only finds a bomb in the room. Emma had set up a decoy to fool them, But things turn worse when the creep Lil Pump shows up. Emma is shocked, and Lil explains that because they couldn't find them, they had to keep moving. Emma takes bold action to get Lil off the truck, stepping out in her suit. Lil, who has always dreamed of fighting another suit, gets ready for battle. Meanwhile, Mike realizes they need to track down everyone on the list they found, but Jason needs a computer to do it. Mike recalls that Emma would know where to find one, considering her car is practically a computer on wheels. Meanwhile, Emma's fierce battle with Lil has begun. She uses her robotic arms to take control of several autonomous semi-trucks. However, Lil quickly stops them and reveals she knows that Lil didn't inform anyone of his arrival. At that moment, Lil sees multiple Emmas, but he realizes she has tampered with his optics. Emma manages to attack him several times, but Lil clearly has a plan in mind. Something seems ready, and Lil unleashes a massive attack that wipes out all of Emma's clones. Emma rushes toward the machine that appears to be recharging the clones, but Lil blocks her. He recharges himself, and the machine Emma was aiming for is destroyed. Lil mocks her for believing she could win, and starts pounding her with punches. Meanwhile, Emma had left a recording in Joe's consciousness, which starts playing as she is beaten down. The recording explains that she might already be dead, and reveals that Mary once saved her life. Ever since then, Emma and Mary have secretly stayed in contact. On the night of the attack, Emma hurried to their house to save them, but she arrived too late. Joe is the only one she managed to rescue, so she apologizes for what happened. Mary always wanted Joe to survive, so Emma is trying to fulfill Mary's wish. Emma has done everything she can, and now she says goodbye to Joe. Suddenly, the intense fire inside Joe pushes his sync with the Kamui suit to end quicker than expected, causing the whole city to lose power. Joe recalls Mary's advice about controlling his emotions, and everyone waits, eager to see what will happen next. At that moment, Joe's suit suddenly glows in the dark. Lil just lies there as Joe walks toward him, pulling out his weapons. Lil buys himself some time by pushing Joe away, and the fight begins. Joe recalls Emma's advice that the more vividly he imagines his actions, the faster and stronger the suit responds. Using this, Joe moves at lightning speed, avoiding Lil's attack. Lil, now seeing what a true ninja looks like, admits he has no regrets, and feels at peace. Just then, Emma, still alive, arrives, witnessing Lil blow them both away. However, Joe remains completely unharmed. He coldly states that Lil's end will be neither quick nor painless, showing no mercy. Lil calls Joe a sadistic bastard, and with that, Lil is transferred to a pervert afterlife. Meanwhile, Yamaji talks with Sai, who promises to carry out any mission Yamaji assigns. Yamaji, satisfied, decides not to hold Sai back anymore. He gives Sai the green light to finish off Joe, declaring that Joe will die by his hand. Meanwhile, back in the truck, Emma notices Joe checking her out, so she clarifies that she isn't into lunatic married men. But Sigma Joe isn't thinking that. He's curious about her past with Mary. Flashbacks reveal Mary was Emma's first mentor, someone she admired deeply for always completing her missions flawlessly. One day, Mary asked Emma why she always wore a mask. Emma explained that her face was badly disfigured in an accident, so much so that even her parents couldn't stand to look at her and abandoned her. She was left all alone until the organization took her in. Inspired by this, she became a master of disguise, able to change into anyone she wanted. After hearing this, Mary removed her mask and told Emma she was beautiful. One day, Mary shared memories of growing up with Sai and Joe, two guys who always seemed intimidating but were really just immature alphas. Despite their tough image, they meant a lot to her, which made Emma uneasy. After all, ninjas aren't supposed to get attached, as emotions can lead to their downfall, and their code forbids such bonds. Later, Mary revealed her secret technique to Emma. She could make it seem like someone had died by putting them in a state of suspended animation. Emma was shocked when Mary offered to teach her this art, reminding her that these techniques should never be shared with anyone. Despite this, Emma looks back on her time with Mary as the happiest days of her life, though it all came to an abrupt end. Yamaji took over as chief and, for some reason, allowed outsiders to join the group. One day, Yamaji asked Emma what she believed a ninja's pride to be, and she replied that it was about protecting the peace of Japan. He wondered what would happen if Japan vanished, and whether the ninja would disappear along with it. After some time, the old leader passed away, and Yamaji began making even bigger changes to the organization, which started to upset many people. One evening, Mary confessed to Emma that she was expecting a baby. Emma was shocked, but even more so when Mary explained it was because she had fallen in love. Mary realized she no longer fit in the organization, as she had broken the Ninja Bro code. Later, Joe was amazed by the news, but admitted that being a ninja was the only life he knew. He realized he would have to learn how to be a father, though he wasn't sure he could. Mary reassured him that they would manage together. Some time later, Yamaji announced that the organization would leave Japan and come under the rule of blonde Elon Musk. This upset everyone, but Yamaji warned that anyone who opposed him would be exiled or worse. Protecting Japan was their pride, so a few brave individuals stood up against Yamaji's plan. Two of them even tried to attack him, but Yamaji has an eerie power that lets him grab people from a distance. He swiftly cut down his attackers, and even isekai'd one of their heads in a fit of madness. Soon, a group formed with the goal of taking Yamaji's life, but an elder ninja warned them that they would likely die in the attempt. Instead, he decided they should leave the organization and pass on their beliefs to others. Later on, Emma confronted Mary. The previous chief had secretly assigned her a mission to determine if the next candidate for leader was worthy. If not, she was ordered to eliminate them. Mary reminded her that the chief had been dead for a long time, but Emma explained that the mission had been given to her long ago. She apologized for deceiving Mary, but she was bound to fulfill the chief's final request. To Emma's surprise, Mary revealed that she had known all along. Emma then pleaded with her to give up her child and return to the organization. Mary refused, and as they fought, Emma realized that Mary had been hiding her true strength all this time. Emma sadly admits that she can no longer remember what her parents looked like. Whenever she tries, Mary's face is the only one that comes to mind. Despite this, the two continue to face off, and eventually Emma comes out on top. She knows that Mary had instinctively shielded her baby at the last second, and if she hadn't, Mary would have won. Emma finds it hard to defeat Mary due to the sisterly love. Mary reveals that she has always seen Emma as family. This makes Emma emotional, as she feels the same way. Emma decides to stay in the organization, planning to monitor their activities from the inside. She keeps in close contact with Mary, even telling her when she's assigned a mission to infiltrate the FBI. Mary often talks about the challenges of motherhood, but she wouldn't give it up for anything. To Emma, Mary represents the perfect example of what it means to be a ninja, inspiring Emma to fulfill her mission until the very end. As Emma digs deeper from within, she uncovers Yamaji's scheme. However, they are quickly running out of time to stop him, as his plan is already in motion. The scene shifts to one of Joseph's ads for his Aza reactors. His new fuel source is claimed to provide unlimited heat, and now the city is saving its citizens 80% on energy costs. Joseph presents this to a government official because he wants to build more power plants. However, the official is hesitant, arguing that people will object to the environmental risks posed by the power plants. Emma reveals that part of Yamaji's strategy is to use Aza's forces as their enforcers. Aza plans to control all energy infrastructure and eventually take over each country from within. Meanwhile, near Aza City, citizens must pass through a security checkpoint to leave. But Emma has a plan. She activates something that shuts down the city's power. This allows the heroes to escape, and the city doesn't even have enough energy to power their drones. For their next move, Emma shares that they'll head to an unfinished power plant to supercharge Joe's suit. A test will be held the next day, and lieutenants will be present. That night, Joe reflects on how Mary once told him to control his emotions. He's still troubled by that night, realizing that Mary's one true wish was for him to keep living. Emma thinks about how the suit's performance is tied to Joe's heart and willpower. If Joe ever falters, she promises to be the one to protect him. Big D confronts Emma, calling her a traitor and warning her that there's no escape. Emma takes off, running for her life as Big D attacks, but Joe shows up just in time to save her. However, Big D's powerful combination of kicks and centipede-like creatures quickly overwhelms Joe. Emma realizes the organization must have a plan against them, so she starts thinking of a way to turn the situation around. She focuses on the reactor, deciding she needs to shut down their wireless resupply system. Emma uses various techniques to dodge the attacks and, in a bold move, climbs onto one of the centipedes to disable it. However, the explosion causes too much damage, and the room starts to collapse, sending Emma crashing through the floor. Things seem grim, but Joe comes to her rescue once again. Despite the escape, the system is down, leaving the suit's energy supply cut off, and they can't move. Big D smugly notes that all he has to do is call for backup, and Joe and Emma would be finished. However, Big D is a real G, and never uses underhanded methods when facing a real opponent. He promises there won't be any interruptions the next time they meet, then leaves. Shortly after, Emma gets a notification that her computer car has been started. They wonder if it's the organization, but Emma suspects it could be someone else. She's right, as Mike and Jason are the ones driving it. Mike used his FBI badge to access it, but Jason warns that his badge won't help them for long. Unfortunately, Jason can't crack the encryption on the car, admitting that only a genius could do it. This worries them because it suggests that Emma is more important to the organization than they realized. That night, Jason freaks out when he hears someone approaching. Mike tries to calm him, but Jason panics and attempts to fight. They're captured, only to find out it's just Joe and Emma. Mike is shocked to discover Emma has been a ninja all along, and she admits that what she did was wrong. She knows an apology won't fix things, which only makes Mike more upset. Mike suddenly realizes that Emma sent him on the mission to find Jason, not to help, but to throw him off track and keep him from uncovering the real truth. She apologizes for what happened, but Mike, still upset, reminds her that she was only doing what she had promised to do, no matter how difficult that duty might be. To make his point, Mike pulls out a drawing his daughter made for him. She had written that she loved him because he protected everyone from the bad guys, making sure they were safe. However, his daughter tragically died in an accident, and the words she left behind haunt him like a heavy burden. As they talk, Mike admits that he wasn't angry because Emma kept secrets from him. Instead, what really hurt him was that she forgot he would always be there to support her, no matter what. The next morning, Emma shares some shocking news that Awoke is aggressively building more power plants, aiming to take control of the country's energy supply. The ninjas they've encountered are part of Awoke's strategy to accomplish this. Unfortunately, the information they have gathered seems so outlandish that it wouldn't hold up as solid evidence. But if Awoke's plan succeeds, it could spell the end of their country as they know it. Elsewhere, Joseph, faced with the fallout from a recent incident, is given two choices: cover it up or make a public statement to calm the citizens' fears. Confident and scheming, Joseph promises to handle the situation, and as he gives his assurance, he casts a villainous gaze into the distance. The group decides on their next plan of action. Emma and Joe will visit several active power plants, shutting them down while also taking the energy they need to keep their own operations going. Mike, however, spices up by asking if Emma and Joe are dating, which earns him a swift kick in the groin. Emma then explains that the Asumo circuit, a crucial part of their equipment, is very delicate and must be handled with extreme care. Mike, now more serious, asks Joe to look after Emma when they split up. In Emma's car, she and Jason are searching for a report on Awoke's server. This report contains key evidence they need to take down Awoke, along with the name of a high-ranking official involved. The discovery is huge since this official is one of the country's top figures. The bros manage to break through the server's firewall. Jason, excited and eager for revenge, needs to be calmed down by Emma, but he's already too fired up. At that moment, Big D shows up and tells Joe to get into his Gusoku gear quickly. Emma grants Mike permission to use the weapons stored in the truck, and Mike instructs Jason to stay in the car and keep hacking. Joe, now fully suited up, joins the fight. He successfully slices through one of Big D's worm creatures, but they start reassembling themselves, ready to fight again. Suddenly, a sniper shoots Mike, and we flash back to when Mike had asked Joe to protect Emma. Joe made it clear that his only goal was to take down the organization, so Mike had to take responsibility for Emma's safety. Fortunately, Mike is unharmed, joking that Emma's kicks have hurt more than the bullet. Emma still has much to learn from Mike, and he promises her that he's not ready to die just yet. Together, they continue fighting off more attackers. Mike wields a Gatling gun with skill, while Emma proves her ability with a handgun. Despite her efforts, Emma finds herself in danger, but this time it's Mike who comes to her rescue. Meanwhile, in the Gusoku gear fight, Big D appears to be gaining the upper hand. However, Joe manages to pull off a clever move, allowing him to turn the tide. In the end, Joe drives his blade straight into Big D's chest. To Joe's surprise, Big D is almost pleased, acknowledging that their fight was unusually graceful. Although he's ready for Joe to end his life, everyone is caught off guard when Big D starts to glow unexpectedly. At that moment, Big D realizes that the blonde Elon Musk has likely rigged his suit to self-destruct. Anger surges through Big D, yet despite his rage, he shields Joe with his centipedes to protect him from the blast. Meanwhile, races to help Emma, shouting her name in panic. Emma, however, has already resigned herself to her fate. She commands her robots to protect Mike, keeping him safe. Joe's focus quickly shifts to Mike and Emma, and he rushes toward them. Emma is badly hurt, but she can still speak, asking only if Mike is all right. He reassures her that he's fine, and in return, she apologizes to Mary, feeling guilty for not being able to keep her promise. Mike pleads with Emma to stay strong while they call for help, but in a moment of vulnerability, she reveals her true face to them. She doubts that Mike would recognize her like this, but he quickly assures her that he does. Mike explains it's a simple trick he's learned, promising once again to teach her in the future. Emma, with a heavy heart, admits she always thought she would die alone, but Mike refuses to let her dwell on such thoughts, wanting her to hold on to hope. Emma begins singing, and we're taken back to a moment when Mike handed her a beer at the bar. In her mind, she also pictured her younger self there, feeling happy as Mike joined in with the singing. Now, as Emma sings that same song, Mike breaks down in tears, knowing she's about to go. After she's gone, the group gently lays her to rest. Someone's definitely cutting onions. Mike shares that Emma could be quite a handful and was always running late. Despite that, they were incredibly close, and talking to her reminded him of what he imagined talking to his daughter would feel like. To Mike, Emma was like a second chance to reconnect with his daughter, but he could never find the courage to tell her that. He calls her foolish for ever believing she'd die alone, and he grows angry at himself for not expressing how much she meant to him. However, Joe reassures Mike that Emma probably already knew. He could tell by the peaceful expression on her face, something he'd never seen in any other ninja. Mike breaks down once more, and the group falls silent. Joe renews his promise to take down the organization, announcing that it's time to end the fight once and for all. Jason reveals that they've hit a major problem, that the information they uncovered has been encrypted by Emma. She had encrypted the data to keep it safe until Mike could access it, but now that plan has backfired. Jason has to figure out how to crack the code, but he's not sure if he's up to the challenge. Right then, they're all stunned when a breaking news report comes on. Ozza is accusing terrorists of attacking their power plants, and they're also blaming Joe's group. Meanwhile, things are getting worse for Joseph. Yamaji receives word that they've extracted all the critical information from Ozza's company, meaning their organization can now produce their own Gusoku gear. Back with Joe's team, they realize their plan is falling apart. Ozza now controls the media, and it seems like they've lost their advantage. He comes up with an idea to make their video go viral, but Mike finds the suggestion too R-rated for his taste. Just then, something unexpected happens. A crow suddenly flies into the truck, surprising everyone. The bird has something in its beak, and Joe calmly explains that it's a challenge to a duel. Jason, not understanding, foolishly thinks Joe is about to fight the crow, but we go into flashback to see what this crow really means. When Zai was rescued as a child by Yamaji, he went with him, and Yamaji told Zai that ninjas are the most powerful warriors in the world. Whoever leads them, Yamaji said, has the ability to rule over everything. As Zai grew older, it became clear that his anger never faded. One time, during a sparring match, his opponent surrendered, but Zai kept attacking. Joe had to step in and stop him, but Zai angrily declared that weaklings like his opponent didn't belong there. Mary witnessed this, and she proposed that they settle the argument with a fight. However, when they did fight, it ended in a draw. Joe, impressed by Zai's skills, praised him for his strength. After that, Zai pushed himself harder, training intensely. Mary observed that Zai had a strange soft spot for crows. She also noticed that Zai had earned the nickname the Reaper, because nearly everyone he fought, except Joe, gave up on being a ninja afterward. Some time passes, and Mary gently reminds Zai that he isn't alone. Feeling a shift in the moment, Zai decides it's time to open up. He reveals something he has never shared before. Both his parents abandoned him right after he was born. Left to die on a remote mountain, he was saved by a group of crows who brought him food and kept him alive. That experience shaped who Zai is, and now he only trusts two things in life: the crows that rescued him and his own strength. Having never relied on anyone to protect him, Zai wonders if joining Joe and Mary will show him a world he's never known before. Joe and Mary respond with a yes, and from that moment, the three of them become the Three Musketeers. However, as time goes on, things take a hard turn. Joe and Mary eventually confess that they're leaving the organization. They explain they've broken the code by being cozy with each other and can't stay. What hits Zai the hardest, though, is when Mary reveals she's pregnant. Completely taken aback, Zai reminds them of the pact they made to trust each other with their lives and face whatever comes their way together. His emotions spiral into rage, and he delivers an ultimatum. They either end his life right then and there, or he swears he will hunt them both down. But Joe and Mary just left him there and said F the code. Now, in the present, Joe arrives at the hideout they used to frequently visit. Jason silently wishes that Joe had ignored Zai's challenge for a duel, but Joe explains that facing Zai is part of the past he needs to confront. Without settling things with Zai, Joe can't move forward. He puts on his Gyusoku armor, ready for what's to come. Zai soon appears, declaring that exiled ninjas must meet their end elsewhere. The battle between Joe and Zai begins, both warriors equally matched in their powerful Gyusoku gear. As they fight, Zai demands Joe to come at him with everything he's got. Joe eventually manages to land a strike, stabbing Zai, but it doesn't stop him. The fight continues, intense and unrelenting. In the heat of battle, both of them lose their swords, and they throw punches so strong that their armor shatters, leaving them exposed. Zai, furious, declares they should have finished him off when they had the chance. He sees Joe as a living reminder of the mistake he made in trusting someone. Now, Zai vows to use his own blood to erase his past. Joe, on the other hand, feels a deep sense of duty and refuses to die until he fulfills it. Neither Joe nor Zai is willing to give up, and they make a final pact to free each other from their burdens, once and for all. A fierce battle begins between the two as they start going all out. Zai seems to have the upper hand at first, but then Joe unleashes his secret art, Serenity. The massive attack helps Joe regain his footing. Zai begins to realize how good Joe has really become, and that he has honed his 5 senses to perfection. Zai then grabs a sword and tries to hit Joe. Meanwhile, he starts having flashbacks of a punishment by Yamaji for not finishing Joe and his family earlier. He starts to give Joe a guilt trip during the fight that had he not abandoned their bond, none of this would have been happening. But Joe reminds him that he did not, and he and Mary really meant it when they said Zai was one of them. Joe explains that the ninja code, however, was of no use because it meant that they couldn't love the ones they held dear. Then we go into a flashback where we see Mary telling Joe that if Zai were to come to attack, she wouldn't fight him much as he wouldn't be wrong. But she would hope that he at least spares her son Ren, as the child would make him realize what the power of love holds. With this memory coursing through Joe's veins, he defends Zai's sword and lands a powerful attack, knocking Zai unconscious. Joe then says that this could be settled later and leaves. Elsewhere, Jason is still going hard in the truck at trying to break Emma's encryption. Suddenly Mike comes back to him and reminds him that the feds may be onto them, which makes the two argue for a bit. But then, Jason ends the argument by offering Mike a drink. This suddenly gets Mike sad as he remembers Emma offering him drinks at times, reminding him how much he misses her and his daughter. The scene shifts to Yamaji's office where he receives a voice note from Joseph. In a shocking turn of events, this turns out to be a farewell note from Joseph who says he'd put good use of ninjas in his future endeavors, followed by Joseph's gunman barging inside Yamaji's space and literally launching an open fire. However, Joseph underestimated the ninja mastermind who had already planted an emergency bomb there, which immediately goes off taking out all the men. Yamaji escapes his building and calls Joseph in his car saying, "Psych bitch, I'm coming." The blonde Elon Musk shit his pants at this point as the brain-rot genius plan backfires brutally. Yamaji then arrives at Oza Corp with an army of his men and starts to eliminate people left, right, and center. Joseph is able to see Yamaji coming closer to his top floor through the CCTV. Some of his guards try to cover and escort him out, but it's too late as the ninjas are already in the house. The guards quickly get defeated, after which Joseph tries to take the elevator down, but surprisingly runs into Dilly, who has come for his rescue. She takes the stairs up, carrying the blonde Elon Musk on her shoulder like a child. However, they get found by Yamaji, who calls Dilly a traitor for doing this. She savagely replies that it was him who made her Joseph's bodyguard. She then throws Joseph out of the window where a helicopter rescues him mid-air. Joseph watches in disbelief as Dilly does what he never even deserved. The scene shifts to Joe after his fight, who is approached by the old doctor who healed him in the beginning. The mother of plot twists happens as the doctor takes off his disguise to reveal that he is Joe's old ninja chief whom they thought had died. Back at Aza Corp, Billy single-handedly takes on Yamaji's ninjas and defeats most of them. She remembers how Joseph's fake bullshit about innovation sent butterflies down her stomach. Yamaji calls her a fool for believing Joseph's crap, but Dilly is convinced. After that, Yamaji gets into his perfected Gyusoku gear for the first time, called the Mikado. He literally takes out Dilly in one big attack in this form, who falls unalive outside the building. Elsewhere, a confused Joe asks the chief why he has been helping him all this time, even though he broke the code. The chief replies that he realized long ago that this code is a curse for all ninjas, one that shackles them completely and robs them of life's warmth. The scene then flashes back to a conversation between Mary and the chief. He told her that the wave he senses from Mary's heart is warm and loving. It is not something he hates, but it would result in her doom. Mary knew this, but still wanted to follow the way of her heart. He was surprised by her approach, but also felt happy because a ninja is much more than a warrior. One must let their heart guide their blade. But he says that Yamaji never agreed with this narrative and wanted the future of ninjas to be cold and fueled purely by power. The chief requests Joe to carry on his defeated vision and end Yamaji's reign. After that, we see Mike visited by his FBI chief. Mike tells him to get Joseph arrested as he is the root of all the chaos happening. But like the cowardly dog he is, the chief keeps on making excuses that this is not as straightforward as it seems. However, he suddenly gets a call from HQ saying that all the private data of Aza has been leaked online. This shocks the chief, and Mike looks at him like, "Psych bitch." Mike tells him that this is his friend Jason's doing, which angers the chief even more. Mike then reveals that the leaked info also exposes big names like the Secretary of Defense who allowed Aza to rent ninjas. The chief asks him if he's threatening the FBI, and Mike replies, "Damn yes." Mike says that he's doing all this in the name of justice, something that the chief has forgotten about. They then go into hand-to-hand combat to decide who is right. On the other hand, Joseph loses his shit. He watches the news that tells Aza's private usage of ninjas as mercenaries has been exposed. He goes mad and makes an announcement to the FBI that he'd overload the Aza reactors and explode the city if he's prosecuted. In the FBI HQ, Mike and Chief are finally on the same page after beating the shit out of each other. They think that this is Joseph's attempt to distract everyone while he leaves the country. As things go bonkers in Aza City, Joe starts heading towards it for his final battle against Yamaji. Elsewhere, Mike starts to travel in his car trying to track down Joseph, who is on the move. He gets a call from HQ where the chief informs him that Yamaji, along with his ninjas, has taken over the Pentagon and the White House. His next call is from Jason, who helps Mike to pinpoint Joseph's location. The scene shifts to Joseph, who has reached one of his Aza test sites. He gets inside an airplane hidden with a bunch of pigs, trying to escape the country. But just before his plane takes off, Mike's car makes it there in due time, hitting into the plane, which causes it to disbalance. Joseph comes out, and the blonde Elon Musk makes a run for his life. But shortly after, Mike captures him, and then starts to punch the out of the loser. Meanwhile, Joe finally makes a dramatic entrance into Aza City, and luckily runs into Yamaji, who seemed like he was waiting for him. The two get into their ninja suits, and the most awaited battle starts. The two ninjas go all out, and look very evenly matched in the start. However, suddenly Zai appears, and sadly is on Yamaji's side, making it a 2v1. Joe starts to struggle against them, and then Yamaji uses his secret art to mess with Joe's brain. He starts to have hallucinations of his dying family, which weakens him drastically, putting him in a very vulnerable position mid-fight. Yamaji is about to deliver the final blow, but Brotherhood awakens at the most needed moment, as Zai changes parties and puts a sword across Yamaji. Yamaji gets angry and goes full power after this, making the two ninjas struggle. When all hope is about to be lost in the fight, Joe gets a vision of his beautiful wife Mary, as if she's right beside him. He tells her that it seems to be all over for him, but Mary reminds him of her ninja way, which is to be as hot as ice and as cold as fire. This remembrance lights a new spark inside Joe, which pushes him over the edge, and his Kamui transforms. He becomes a true shinobi, who then shocks Zai by using Zai's secret art, Thunderclap, to gain the edge on Yamaji. No longer holding back, Joe delivers the final blow to Yamaji, bringing an end to the Emperor's reign. Before breathing his last, Yamaji warns that his kind will continue to spread chaos in this world forever. Elsewhere, Mike points a gun on Joseph's head, and then shoots just inches away from his ear, making him pee literally this time. The blonde Elon Musk is finally arrested by the FBI. The scene shifts to Zai, who is about to unalive himself as he thinks he has no purpose left to live. But Joe stops his brother and makes him believe that he is now truly free from the shackles of ninja, and the two can now live a new life. Thanks for watching, my fellow plot boys, and don't forget to subscribe for more top-notch quality anime recaps. And until next time guys, take care.